Okay, so boys and girls, without further ado, okay, let's begin. We are a bit late to begin. So today we're looking at situational writing and how we can use connectors to link paragraphs properly. All right, remember, connectors are not conjunctions. All right, connectors are normally a little bit longer than conjunctions. They are words that help you to let the reader know whether you are continuing along the same line or you are going to start an idea that's the opposite from the ideas that you talked about before. So some common connectors, right, that clue the readers in, that tells them that, oh, you are continuing to talk about the same kind of idea, would be things like additionally, which is normally followed by a comma. You have things like moreover. All right, you have things like furthermore. These are all, sorry, I shouldn't draw the arrow like that, nah? So it's quite confusing. The arrow should be drawn to connectors instead. So connectors, yeah? So these are all connectors, right, that tell the reader that you still want to continue talking about the same kind of ideas or on the same side of the argument, okay? And then there are connectors that tell the reader that you are going to talk about something different. Things like in contrast, right? In contrast means I'm going to talk about something that's the opposite of what I've said before. Or we can use words like however at the beginning as well to tell the reader that you're going for an opposite idea. You can also use words like you can use connectors like in opposition for arguments, right, to show that you're going to talk about something that's the opposite of it. All right, but that's what connectors are basically. Keep this idea in mind as we progress along the lesson so that you know how to differentiate a connector from a conjunction. All right, conjunctions are your usual words like as, because, but. These words can be found normally in the middle of sentences, sometimes at the beginning, but connectors can only be found at the beginning of sentences. All right, as, because, but, also, when, unless, so on and so forth, right? And, nor, or, so, these are conjunctions, okay? Don't confuse them with your connectors, huh? Okay, here comes Kaihan and Rina. Ooh, Jianing had oral today. How did you do? Or do you think you did well, Jianing? Oh, I can't hear you. I think your microphone might be spoiled. Still no sound. Yeah, you might want to type your answer out in the chat group. Okay, let's start. Okay, let's start. So first, we're looking at situational writing, informal email writing, and then we're looking at composition writing. And of course, since a lot of you are in the middle of your orals, all right, we'll be touching a bit on oral communication skills today and some quick tips, right, on how to actually do well. So first, situational writing. Remember for your PSLE, right, keep it simple, okay? The 15 marks that they put over there, right, they're actually giving it to you in that sense. No need to be long-winded, okay? No need to be long-winded. Include the relevant details. Focus on answering the 6 bullet points and you'll be fine. You'll be scoring most of the 15 marks from that if you can answer the bullet points given to you, okay? This is super important. If you can do this, you'll be earning most of the 15 marks already. And adding unnecessary details, right, is not going to help. So don't do that, okay? You only add these types of details in secondary school. In primary school, you don't need to do that. Just focus on answering these 6 bullet points. You are good as gold. All right, answer the 6 bullet points properly, not just answer them in an anyhow way. All right, answer them with all the information you can get from the poster they gave to you. So not only must you answer the 6 bullet points, you should also add fluency and connectedness to the point. So how do you get fluency and connectedness? Connectedness means what? Connectedness means, okay, the reader can see how your ideas are laid out. Fluency means, all right, the way your ideas are organized makes sense. That's fluency. All right, so 2 different concepts, fluency and connectedness. All right, so remember, you should add a line or 2 to join the points together. All right, and we should use meaningful connectors. All right, that's what I talked about just now. And it will help our reader to know what to expect for our next paragraph or our next point. All right. Oh, Jaslyn, that picture is not very flattering of her, the background. Looks quite scary, actually. uh, oh, okay, Jianing, I hope you do well eventually for the oral. Pausing is okay. Don't worry about pausing. It's to gather your thoughts. Your teacher will understand, okay? But for the mother tongue one, that might be an issue if you started for the mother tongue one. Yeah, but for the English one, shouldn't be an issue. Will they minus marks if we write unnecessary details or if we write too much things? Well, they will minus marks if you write unnecessary details. Okay, but if you write details that are relevant to the situation. So, for example, Nasiran, Jerusha and Brian are cousins. Okay, just for example. Okay, then Jerusha is writing a letter to Brian recommending good places to visit, right? That his family should go to for the holidays. So as Jerusha is writing about that, if Jerusha writes something like, oh, when you're on your holiday, don't forget to send a postcard back so I get to imagine the fun that you guys are having as well. If Jerusha wrote something like that, right, it would be perfectly fine. It would be relevant to the letter because it's relevant to what she's doing. She's recommending tourist places or holiday destinations to Brian. So that's fine. But if Jerusha were to talk about things, like by the way, Brian, like after she finishes recommending the holiday destinations, right? Then Jerusha says something like, "Oh, Brian, I hope your pet dog is all right. Last time I heard from you, right, he was sick. Little Brownie, right, has always been a very frail dog. I do hope that you can take care of her. And I do hope that she recovers fast. I shudder to think what might happen if you hadn't discovered her not breathing very well the other night, that kind of thing." If you wrote stuff like that, it has nothing to do with the purpose of your letter, then you will get points minused. Because the letter is not about asking Brian about his dog that's sick. The letter is about recommending travel destinations to Brian's family, right? So we have to differentiate between necessary details and unnecessary details. If it's necessary detail or it's details that are linked, you can have 2 or 3 of that, and that would not minus your marks. That would in fact boost your marks. But if you have unnecessary things, then that would have your marks minus. Just for example, Brian, I don't know whether you have a dog or not. It's just for an example. Okay. And Howie has finished his oral composition and listening comprehension. So I guess you're left with your paper too, hey Howie? Kai-Han spelled sincerely as sincerely last time. You know what? The teacher might not pick up on it actually for that. Let's hope your teacher skips and misses that. Okay, Kai-Han, but I think that's just a minor one. As long as the content for your writing is there and that you have answered the bullet points, you should get most of the 15 marks, right? At least 11 of that. provided you don't have grammar, punctuation, or spelling mistakes. Okay? If you have those, your teacher might minus 1 or 2 marks from your situational writing. Ooh, Brian has also finished his oral, compo, and situational writing. So that's 2 of you who have finished that, Howie and Brian. Left with paper 2. Are you both from the same school? Oh, Brian is done with listening compre as well. Oh no. Okay, sure. So some examples of connectors. In addition tells us what? It tells us that the writer wants to continue the same train of thought. Eventually tells us that the author is going to conclude something that's going to eventually happen, right? Means it's only a matter of time before something happens. Okay? At the end of our experience, also tells us that the author is going to conclude, but not the same conclude as the previous conclude. This one is going to conclude the letter. Okay, or he's going to conclude the experience. Whereas the previous one is going to conclude that something is going to happen. That something will happen. All right, so these different connectors, right, they are very strong phrases, strong clues to the reader that clues the reader in as to what direction you are taking them. And therefore, connectors are really important. I see a lot of students, right, not using these in your situational writing, and it's such a shame because by using connectors, you actually increase the understand, or rather the readability or the ease of understanding for your readers, because it tells them how you're going to continue writing. So let me show you some examples just to elaborate on it. So on the left, we see without connectors. So this is obviously a complaint. I don't know whether it's a complaint letter or an email or whatever, but it's a complaint about poor service at a bookstore. So if you look at the one on the left, without connectors, I had to wait 20 minutes before the store assistant had time to help me. When he was ready to help me, he was very rude and told me that the bookstore did not entertain book exchanges, even after I explained to him that the book was already torn when I purchased it. So this is without connectors. All right. When you read it, right, it sounds very like very flat. Like there's no, you can't tell how the reader is trying to express himself or herself. There's no fluency to it. But with connectors, you understand the situation a bit better. From the time that I entered the bookstore, that's a connector, it's a very long one, I had to wait for 20 minutes before the store assistant had time to help me. To make matters worse. Now look at this. Worse is a very negative word, right? By using the word worse over here, you are signaling to the reader, this is a complaint, isn't it? And to make matters worse, you're kind of like saying like, okay, this is bad already. Now this is worse. And then it gets even worse later, that kind of thing. So it helps to convey your attitude towards the reader that you're not happy with the service at the store. Okay? To make matters worse, when he was ready to help me, he used a very rude tone and told me that the bookstore did not entertain book exchanges. This was after I explained to him that the book was already torn when I purchased it. The dismal attitude of the store. Wow, look at this dismal attitude, right? Once again, another negative word, showing your displeasure. On the left, right, it's very neutral, the way that they wrote it, right? You can't really tell whether the person was angry or not really very angry. The only words that you can tell over here is just that very rude, right? But it doesn't really express the reader's attitude or the reader's feelings towards it. all we know over here is that the person was very rude. That's it. And nothing much. But in the next